Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom and welcome to today's Daf Yomi Niddah, Daf Menvav, the second line. V'oid masiv Rab Zera. Rab Zera asked another kasha. Now we know that a katan, once he reaches the age of 13, bar mitzvah, is considered to be a gadol, provided that he has shtei sa'ares. He grew 2 hairs in specific areas of his guf, which are a siman of gadlus, which are an indication that he is indeed a gadol. Younger than that age, he's considered to be a katan, and generally speaking, his words and actions don't really carry any halachic validity. There's one yotzei min haklal, there's one exception to that, and that is regarding the ability to make a neder, or to be magdish, or perhaps even to take off truma, like we'll see later in the Gemara. For these halachas, regarding these specific halachas, even a 12-year-old who is within a year of becoming a gadol, he is samach li'ish, he is on the verge of becoming a ish, he does have the ability to do these things, provided that he understands and he recognizes the full consequence of what he is about to do. And that is even if he does not have shtei saris. But in the case where a 12-year-old did grow shtei saris, in that case there is a machlekes hamarayim whether we regard him as a full-fledged gadol, even for all other halachas, for kol ha'torah kula. Do we say that teichazman, within this period, meaning the 12-year-old period, is that considered kilafnei zman? He is merely considered a katan, since he hasn't reached 13. Or do we say teichazman kilachar zman? It is considered as if he is already a gadol. Frekti Gemara, how could you suggest that teichazman kilachar zman he is already a gadol? The brisa seems to indicate otherwise. Says the brisa, ish ki yafli linder neder. The Torah says that if a man goes and expresses a neder, he makes a vow, ma tamad loyma ish. Why does the Torah use the word ish? L'rabbis, to include ben yud gimel shana v'yom echad, somebody who was 13 years old and a day, sha'av pish eni yodeh lahafli, even if he doesn't really understand the significance of what he's doing, nedarav kayamin, nevertheless, his nedarim do stand and take hold. Meaning, there is no condition. Once he is already a gadol, there is no condition of him having to recognize and to appreciate what he is doing. So the Gemara, Hechidami, what are we speaking about? He's 13 years old in a day, but has not yet brought the shur sares katanu. Then he is merely a katan, since for gadlus it is necessary for him to be A, 13 years old, and B, to have the 2 sares. Ela Lav must be speaking about the Aisi Shtei Saris. He has already grown 2 saris. Now we can make a diyuk from the brisa. The time would have been Yud Gimel V'yom Echad. Only because he's already 13 years old and a day, and he already has 2 saris. In that case, then he is considered to be a full-fledged mature adult. He is considered to be an ish. But however, if he's only 12 years old, even though he already has 2 saris, he's merely a katan. Tiyufta. So this seems to be a tiyufta, a refutation on the shita that holds that a 12-year-old is considered to be a gadol. Perhaps this machlekes hamarayim will be dependent on a machlekes tanoim. Zok the brisa, ben tes shonim shehevi beisaris shuma. A ben tes shonim, meaning he is only 8 years old, he is within his 9th year, that he already grew 2 saris. Shuma is merely a mole. It is not considered to be a siman of gadlus. It's just a random growing of hair, and is not a siman of adulthood. If he's already 9 and a day up to the age of 12 and a day, again, the 2 saris are merely a shuma. That is the shita of a Tanakama. Rabbi Yosef Rehuda Aimer Siman. A 9-year-old up to 12, if he is maybe shtei saris, that indeed is a siman of gadlus. It would seem from here that according to the Tanakama, if he is already 12 years old and a day, at that point, his saris are indeed a siman of gadlus. But let's go weiter to the sefer, to the last halach in the brisa. Zok the brisa weiter, ben yud gimel shana v'yom echad. If he's already reached 13 and a day, divrei hakol siman. Everybody will agree that the saris that he brings then are considered to be a siman of gadlus. So we seem to have a stira. The diyukim of the Reisha and the Sefer seem to contradict each other. In the Reisha we have an indication that a 12-year-old is indeed a gadol if you brought shtei saris. In the Sefer we see the opposite. Zok the Gemara, ho gufer kasha. It seems to be a contradiction. Amris mi ben tes v'adis beis shana v'yom echad shuma. And the ratio you're saying, from 9 to 12, it's a Shuma. It would seem from there, you can infer from there, Ha Yud Gimel Shana Gufa, within the 13th year, meaning a 12-year-old, Simon. Then indeed it is really a Simon of godless. V'adar Tani, then you go ahead and say in the Sefer, that Dafka ben Yud Gimel Shana V'yamechot Simon, only because he's already turned 13 and a day, then the two saris are a Simon of godless. Ha Yud Gimel Shana Gufa, Shuma. But a 12-year-old, by him the two saris are merely a Shuma. So it's a seeming contradiction. My love. So the only way to reconcile this is say Tanai. It is indeed a machlekes Tanaim. The Reish and the Seifa are two shitas. The Mar Savar Teich Zman Kala Achazman. The Reish is following the opinion that a 12-year-old has a din of a gadol, or Mar Savar Teich Zman Kala Fneizman. The view of the Seifa is following the shita of the Amir, which holds that a 12-year-old is Kala Fneizman is merely a katan. So again, we have three shitas in the Brisa. We have the Tanakama, which is dependent on two shitas, meaning, according to the Tanakama, from 9 to 12, he is merely a katan. What about the 12th year? One shita will hold 12 years old that brings saris considered to be a gadol. The Sefer will be following the shita that a 12-year-old saris is a katan. Then we have Rabbi Yisrael Yehuda who holds that even back from 9 and a day, and he brings saris, it is already a simon of godless. So perhaps you don't have to go this way. Everybody follows the view that a 12-year-old is nishner, is merely a katan. Now we'll explain the Brisa in a different way. We have actually 4 ways to reconcile the stira. One mahalach will be that the Reish and the Seif are both speaking about a girl tinaikis. V'Reisha Rebbe, v'Seifa Reb Shimon ben Elazar. Now we know that there's a machlekes. What is the age of maturity? What is the age of becoming a gadol? According to Rebbe, a bas, when she reaches 12, is a gdoila. A ben, only at 13. Reb Shimon ben Elazar holds in the reverse, that a ben who reaches 12 is a gadol. A bas needs to wait until she is 13. That was mentioned in the blot that we learned yesterday. So now, according to that, we can explain the Brisa as follows. That both the Reish and the Seif are speaking about a girl at Tinoikis. The Reisha that says that a 12-year-old is a Gdoila, Reisha Rebbe, is following the sheet of Rebbe. The Seifa, the latter part of the Brisa, which seems to indicate that a 12-year-old girl is a Katana, Reb Shimon Elazar is following the shita of Reb Shimon Elazar that it needs to be 13 to be a Gdoila. If you want, we can suggest another teretz. Ha v'ha b'tinaik. The Reisha and the Seifa are both referring to a boy, a tinaik. The Reisha seems to say that a 12-year-old is a gadol. Reb Shimon ben Elazar is following the shita of Reb Shimon ben Elazar that a boy, once he reaches 12, is considered to be a gadol. The Seifa, the last part of the Brisa, which seems to say that a 12-year-old boy is a katan, is following the shita of Rebbe that a boy needs to be 13 to be bar mitzvah. If you want, we could propose another teretz. Ha v'ha Rebbe. Both the Reisha and the Seifa are following the shita of Rebbe. However, ha-b'tinaikis. Rebbe holds that a tinaik only once he reaches 13 is a gadol, and therefore in the Seifa, which we have a dig from the Seifa that a 12-year-old is a katan, is referring to a tinaik. He is still prior to bar mitzvah. Ha-b'tinaikis, the ratio which seems to indicate that a 12-year-old is a gadol, that is referring to a tinaikis, who once she reaches 12, according to Rebbe, is a gadola. By saying one final teretz, ha-v'ha Shimon ben Elazar. Both the Reisha and the Seifa found the shita of Reb Shimon ben Elazar. Ha b'tinaik. The Reisha, which says that a 12-year-old is a gadol, is a boy. Reb Shimon ben Elazar holds that a boy, once he reaches 12, is a full-fledged gadol. Ha b'tinaikis. But the Seifa, which seems to indicate that a 12-year-old is a katana, is referring to a girl at tinaikis who needs to be 13 in order to become a gedola. So again, in summary, we had a Brisa which seems to have a stira. The Reish of the Brisa seems to indicate a 12-year-old is a gadol. The Seifa seems to indicate a 12-year-old is a katan, and we have 4 malachim to reconcile this stira, and it is not dependent on the machlekes of whether a 12-year-old is a gadol or a katan. Everybody holds, generally speaking, a 12-year-old, meaning within a year of gadlus, is certainly considered to be a katan. However, we have 4 malachim to explain the Brisa otherwise. Zok Gemara weiter. The Mishnah said that Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Simon, that even a 9-year-old from 9 and a day up to 12 who has shtei saris, it indeed is considered to be a simon of gadlus. So the Gemara, there's a condition to that. Amar Rav Kuspladai Brei the Rav Shapsoi V'hu Sh'oiden Boi. They need to be there. He needs to maintain those shtei saris until he becomes 13, until he really becomes of age. He needs to hold on to them, meaning that only then will it be revealed to us that they were indeed a siman of galus. But if they fall out in the interim before he turns 13, then even according to Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, we did not consider it to be a siman. Tani Nami Hachi, we have a supporting brayso, ben tes shana b'yom echad shehevi shtei saris shuma. Ben tes v'ad yud beis shana b'yom echad v'odim boy shuma. So this is following the shita of the Tanna Kama that a 9-year-old to a 12-year-old cannot possess simanei galus. Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, Omer siman, it is considered to be a siman. So the brayso clearly indicated that even Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda is referring to a case that the Sa'aros was still there. V'oidem boy, they were on him when he became a gadol. So in summary, we had a machlokes regarding the year, which is samoch li'ish, which is preceding the stage of gadlus, meaning by a boy when he's already 12 years old and he already has simanim. What is his status regarding all the halachas of the Torah? We know regarding neder, hegdish, perhaps truma, he does have the power to do those things if he understands, if he recognizes the significance of what he's doing. But regarding kol Torah kula, what is the status of a 12-year-old? There was a machlokes tanoim, whether he's a katan or whether he's a gadol. The Gemara had one kasher, Reb Zeri asked from a brayso, which was concluded with a tiyufta. We shlugged it up. Then Reb Nachman proposed that perhaps it is machlokes tanoim. The Gemara went away from that proposal and explained the brayso in a totally different mahalach, which wasn't dependent on this discussion at all. Meaning, everybody will hold that a 12-year-old is a katan, but the ratio that says that a 12-year-old is a gadol is speaking about one case, meaning we're speaking about perhaps a katana which had already reached her full age of maturity, which is 12, and the sefer which seems to indicate that a 12-year-old is a katan is speaking about a boy who, according to Rebbe, is still prior to bar mitzvah, but it is not dependent on the previous discussion of Teich Zman, Kilafnei Zman, or Kilachar Zman. And to summarize the brayso, we have two shitas. We have the Tanna Kama, who holds that the shtei saris are simanei galus, are considered to be a sign of galus only once he reaches the age of maturity, which is by a boy 13 and a day, by a girl 12 and a day, according to the shita of Rav Shimon Elazar. And we have Rabbi Yosef who holds that even a 9-year-old in a day who has shtei saris and he maintains those saris, he keeps them until he becomes of age, that too is considered to be a siman of gadlus. So Amar Rava, Hilchasa teich zman kilifnei zman. The halacha is that a 12-year-old is considered to be a katan. Rav Shmuel bar Zuta masnor shmaita the Rava b'haylishna. He learned that the halacha of Rava, teich zman, kilifnei zman, that 12-year-old is a katan, he learned it in a different fashion. Amar Rava, ktana kol yudbeis shana, the 12th year, meaning when she's 11 years old, v'mahenes ve'alechas, a girl who's a ktana, she can do miyan, meaning if she married without her father giving her over to the Baal, suppose, for instance, she was a Yesoma, then her marriage is merely a D'Rabbanan. She doesn't have a full-fledged D'Oraisa marriage. It is merely a Nesue D'Rabbanan, and therefore doesn't require a get to be terminated. She can merely refuse and walk away. She can be Memayin, and this way she terminates the Nesue D'Rabbanan. So Kol Zman Aktana is young enough, she is before Bas Mitzvah, she is merely 11, but if she is past that stage, she can't do miyan. So just let's stop right here. So the first halacha of Rava was that Aktana kol yud beis shana. Now actually there is a girsa in the Ritva which says kol shnas yud beis. So that would seem to indicate that we're speaking about the year of prior to Bas Mitzvah, meaning when she's 11, and in that case she is a samoch li. She's in the year which is immediately preceding. She's on the verge of becoming a gdoila. She is toich zman, and Rava says very clearly that she still has a status of a ktana. She can refuse. She can be memayin v'hoilech. So it is clear that Rava holds, like the shita, that a 12-year-old by a boy or 11-year-old by a girl is still considered to be a katan. Let's continue on the halacha of Rava, that a ktana, when she is a ktana, she can be memayin, but past that stage, mekan ve'elach, once she reaches maturity, she's already 12 years old in a day, then we got a problem. Eino mema'enes ve'eino chaletzes. On the one hand, she's already considered to be a gdoila regarding the halacha of mian. She can't just refuse and walk away. We consider her to be a gdoila in that regard. But eino chaletzes, she can't do chalitza. Now for chalitza you need to be a gdoila. But in this case, since we haven't yet determined whether she has simanim, we haven't yet determined that she has the two saris, therefore she's in a state of limbo. We have a doubt whether she's really indeed a gdoila. So we go l'chumra. We consider her as a gdoila regarding miyun, she cannot be memayin, and we consider her as a ktana regarding chalitza. She can't be chalitz. Hagufa kasha. It's a self-contradictory statement. Amr's einam ma'enes. On the one hand, you're saying she's a gdoila, she can't do miyun. Am a gdoili. Igdoili. If indeed she's a gdoila tachlitz, why can't she do chalitza? So how do we understand what Rava is saying? Perhaps you can propose that Rava is in doubt, he's a sufek, and therefore, since it is a sufek, we always need to go l'chumra. We don't know whether a 12-year-old and a day girl has indeed brought her saris until we determine that, until we ascertain that for sure. How could that be that Rava holds that it is a sufek? Rava, we have another halacha from Rava who says, once a ktana reached her years, means she's already 12 years old and a day, we never have to examine. We don't have to ascertain chazaka. It is a chazaka hivia simanim. We presume that she already brought simanim. So these two halachas of Rava seem to contradict each other. Here Rava is saying a 12-year-old has a chaskas gadlush. She's certainly considered to be a gdoila regardless of whether we know that she has simanei gadlush or not. And the first halacha of Rava seemed to indicate that it is a suffix. We're in doubt. And regarding miyan, she is considered to be a gdoila and cannot do miyan. And regarding chalitza, however, she's still considered to be a ktana. She can't do chalitza. And for the Gemara, hanamili bistama. This that Rava says that there is a chazaka that once you reach the age of galus, you already have simanim. That is only when it is a stomach, when it is just a presumed thing, meaning we don't know one way or the other. In our case, meaning the first case of Rava, it's speaking about that they actually were boidik, they examined v'le'ashchod, they didn't find two saris. Loi. In that case, we are in doubt. We don't know whether she brought her simanim or not. So again, if we haven't checked, then there's a chazaka. But if we check and we see otherwise, in that case, there is a suffix of whether she's indeed a gdoila or not. If you checked, and there were no simanim present, there were no sa'aris, so why don't you consider a full-fledged tana? Let her do miyan. Why are you making a suffix out of it? So the Gemara, we are concerned perhaps the simanim fell out, the sa'aris fell out, meaning she turned 12 in a day, she possessed two shtei sa'aris, but eventually they fell out, and therefore we're still in doubt of whether she's considered a gdoila or ktana, and we have to go lo chumrah. So the Gemara, this is good. We have a machlokes of whether we ever consider such a concern, whether we say chayshina and shema nashru or not. Meaning, is there a makom? Is there room to even think that the saris fell out? That would be good and well according to the shita. Yeah, that there is such a concern. According to the shita, that we're never concerned with such a chashash. What can you say? The Itmar, we've learned Rav Papa, we never are chayshish, we never suspect that the two saris fell out. Rav Papa, we do chayshish, we do suspect that they fell out. So it comes out that our explanation of Rava's first halacha, that the reason why we go to Chumrah is because we checked, we didn't find anything, and still in all we're in doubt, perhaps we're concerned, perhaps the saris fell out, that won't work with the shita of Rav Papa who holds ein chayshishin. So the Gemara, hani mili, that is only meaning that Rav Papa who says ein chayshishin, we're not chayshish, we're not concerned that the simanim fell out, that is only le'inin chalitza. Meaning, if we check her, we don't find simanim, we're not going to go ahead and say, well, perhaps they were there and they fell out, and therefore she's really a gdoila and she could do chalitza. I'm not going to say that. But regarding miyan, meaning to consider her to be a ktana because there are no sa'aris present, chayshishin. We're still chayshish. Meaning, Rav Papa, who says ein chayshishin shemen ashru, that was only merely to say that we're still in doubt. We can't ascertain, we can't be positive that the Saras fell out. Meaning, we're in doubt. Perhaps the Saras did fall out, perhaps they didn't fall out, and therefore she's in a state of limbo. She can't do min, and she can't do chalitza. So therefore the kasha you asked is not shver. Meaning, Rav as well is speaking about they were boidek, they didn't find, and therefore we're in doubt. Perhaps they were there and they fell out. You asked the kasha, how would this fit with the shita of ein chayshishin shemen ashru? He never meant to say that for certain we're chayshish, we determine that they haven't fallen out. He merely said ein chayshishin shemen ashru to the extent that we can't presume, we can't assume for certainty that the Saras were there and they fell out. No, perhaps they did, perhaps they didn't, and she is in a state of a suffix. And that's exactly that exactly fits with the halacha of Rava. So the Gemara, how could that pshat be true? Mechlal demand omar chayshishin chayletzes. So according to your pshat and the machlekes, Rav Papa is saying ein chayshishin, meaning we're in doubt. Perhaps they did, perhaps they didn't, and we always go l'chumra. So what does Rav Papa hold? Chayshishin, that we say she did have saris and they fell out, and therefore she is a gdoila. For all practical purposes, she has a halacha of a gdoila. That can't be. For chayshin ba'al makamar. The words of Rav Papa, chayshishin, means we're concerned, we suspect. Chayshishin ba'alma. That doesn't indicate a certainty. How could you say that the Rav Papa holds it's a suffix, and Rav Papa will hold it's a vadai? Rav Papa merely says chayshishin, we're concerned. So that can't be the pshat in the machlekes of Rav Papa and Rav Papa. Meaning, you had an erroneous explanation. It must be that the machlekes is very simple. Rav Papa says we're never chayshish. There isn't even a tzad. There isn't even room for any concern that the Saras had fallen out. And Rav Papa says, yeah, we are chayshish, we go l'chumra. So according to Rav Papa, being that there's no chash, we never even considered the possibility that the Saras fell out, that won't shtim, that won't work, that won't be in line with your explanation of Rav's first halacha, that we're always chayshish, that Saras fell out. So we're back to the kasha. Ella, you must say a different pshat. La'olam delay batka. We're speaking about you weren't boidik, and therefore you have a kasha. According to the first halacha of Rava, a 12-year-old without bedika, we go l'chumra, and then we have a member from Rava which says very clearly that a 12-year-old is presumed to have shtei saris, so it's a contradiction. The Gemara in and chalitza chayshinan. Regarding chalitza, we're still chayshish, meaning this that Rava says that a tana who's reached the age of maturity doesn't need a bedika. What he meant to say is it's l'chumra, that we can't be mamayin, meaning she's in a state of limbo. She has a chazaka regarding miyun. We can assume, we're concerned that perhaps she's already reached her age of maturity. She already has shtei saris, but he didn't mean to say that for all practical purposes, even l'kul, even a leniency, you will consider it to be a gdoila. Again, regarding chalitza, we're chayshish that a 12-year-old without simanim is still a ktana. When Rava said that she's presumed to have simanim lemiyun, he only meant lemiyun, meaning she can't be mamayin. We presume that she's a gdoila, and we go l'chumra. But she doesn't have a full status of a gdoila. And regarding chalitza, in order for her to make chalitza, of course we have to examine and ascertain that she indeed had shtei saris. So now we have it all worked out. The first and second halachas of Rava do not contradict each other. Rava is merely saying that Abbas Yud Beishanim Yom Echad, who was not nivdak, we don't know for sure if there are two saris, we need to go l'chumra. And regarding miyun, we consider her to be a gdoila and she cannot do miyun. Regarding chalitza, we consider her to be a ktana and she cannot perform chalitza. However, in the case where you were baidik, you checked and you didn't find simanim, there is a machlekes of Rav Papa and Rav Papi. Rav Papa holds ein chayshishin shemen ashru. We don't suspect, we're not concerned, perhaps there were simanim there and they've fallen out. No, she is considered to be a full-fledged tana and she can be mamayin. Rav Papa holds chayshinan v'ra chayshish. Perhaps the simanim did fall out and she is considered to be a gdoila, and we need to go l'chumra regarding miyun, and she can't do miyun anymore. Amar Avdimi minarda hilchasa chayshishin shemen ashru. We do suspect that the saris had fallen out and she cannot be mamayin anymore. V'hani mili, that is only said heicha de kitcha b'seich zman ubal la'achar zman. that is only with regard to a concern of an Issa De'iraisa. For instance, if he was Mekadesh Tiktana when she was young, so that is only a D'Rabbanan Dika Nesuin. But then she grew up and he was Baal Achar Zman. They lived together as husband and wife. And now we are speaking about a Gdoila who was Niskadish with a Kinyan De'iraisa. Now he acquired her with an Isui De'iraisa. So now for her to go be Mamayin, we're speaking about a Chashash, a concern of Issa De'iraisa. Because being that the marriage theoretically is a De'iraisa marriage, she requires a get. For her to merely walk off, that is unsatisfactory. Zok the Gemara, the Ika Sveika De'iraisa. In this case, there is a suffix De'iraisa. So therefore, in the case of a 12-year-old who does not possess Simone Galus, we are chayshish, perhaps they were there, she did become a Gdoila, and then they fell out. So we don't allow her to do Mian. Aval Mikara Lai. But if they're still young, she's still under the age of Gadlus, and there was merely a Kinyan, an Isui D'Rabbanan. So in that case, regarding an Issa, a Kinyan D'Rabbanan, we are not chayshish Shemanashru, and being that there are no Saris, we consider it to be a full-fledged Ketana, and she can indeed perform Miyun. Zok the Gemara weiter. Amar Rav Huna Higdish v'achal loike. We know that a 12-year-old boy, he's considered a mufla, hasamach lish. He's on the verge, he's close to becoming a gadol. And in the case of mufla, that he knows how to express himself, how to articulate himself, he understands the significance to his neder, or to his hegdish, they will take hold. So in the case of a 12-year-old who made a hegdish, and he went ahead and he was nana, he ate what he was magdish, which is an isser. The chiddush of Rav Huna is that even though he is a katan, who is generally exempt from einshin, but in this case, being that he has the power, the ability to make the hegdish, so as well, if he eats the hegdish, he is liable and is loike on that account. Shenemar ish ki yafli linder. If a man will make a neder, v'lo yachal dvari, and the pasuk in the parasha of Nadar and Parashas Matei says he shouldn't break his words. So we learn from there, kol sheyeshna b'haflo yeshna b'bal yachal. One who is capable of making the neder, he too is liable, responsible for breaking it. If somebody doesn't have the ability to make a neder, then he does not have the din of bal yachal. So in our case, since he has the ability to make the neder, so similarly, if he breaks his neder, he will be like it. That's tremendous chiddush. Maser Rav Huna bar Yehuda l'siyul Rav Huna. He's bringing a raya to support this gevaldige chiddush that even though he's a katan, he will get malchus. It says in the Brayso, Lefish Matzinu. Since we find Sheish v'Hakosef, Hakatan kegadol, the Torah equates a minor katan to a gadol regarding Lezadin Shvua. He is responsible for making a shvua, a promise, ul iser, ul bal yachal, and for making a neder, and the isurim that are associated with making a neder. Yachal yechayev al akdeshe karban. If he makes hegdish, if he's magdish something, and then somebody has a naw from it, that is called being moil min hegdish, and that generally one who does that is obligated to bring a karban. However, in the case of a katan's hegdish, that is not so. Talmud loyma zeh hadavar. The Torah is excluding as being a ma'it only this thing, meaning only regarding the isser, the prohibition to break his word, but not regarding bringing a karban as a consequence. That is the words of the Brayso. Again, that a katan does have zadin shvua, does have isser, and does have bal yachal. That would seem to be a support to Rav Huna's chiddush that even though he's a katan, he will get malchus for breaking his neder. Katanim miyas, an rate that says l'israel bal yachal chayev. So we see from here that a katan will be like it. So the Gemara, no, that is not so. Ema, you can interpret the Brayso l'israel bal yachal. True, there's an isser, the prohibition to break the neder, even a neder of a katan. However, it will not carry with it the consequence of malchus. It's only an isser. Dr. Gemara, isser bal yachal, manavshach. How do you explain that? If this fellow, this boy who's 12 years old and on the verge of becoming an ish, he's called a mufla samach lish. If that is a din da'iraisa, this capability of making a neder is a da'iraisa dikadin. So it is a full-fledged neder, and for all practical purposes, it has all the ramifications of a neder. Milka nami lilki, he should be like it, just like Rav Huna said. If you don't consider this to be a din dairaisa, we'll see later on the Gemara, there's a machlekes in this regard. So if he doesn't have the dairaisa, the ability to make a neder, iser nami leka. How can the Torah be telling us, we're learning from a pasuk, that the Brisa interpreting the pasuk, that even a neder of a katan will have an iser of bal yachal? How is that? It's either or. Either it's a full-fledged neder with malkos, or it's nothing. And for the Gemara, l'oisan hamuzharin olav, meaning that true, it doesn't have an issa daraisa. It's not considered asa midaraisa. It's merely darbanan. And the Rabbanan commanded that those that are warned on him, meaning those that are commanded, that are mitzvah, to prevent him from doing Yisurim, they must prevent him from eating this thing that he was magdish. So you can't bring a raya from this brisa to Rav Huna's chiddush. Perhaps we're speaking of merely Issa D'Rabbanan, and the Chachamim obligated those around him, those are responsible for him, to prevent him from eating something which he was magdish, since Midrabbanan, his hegdish takes effect. So the Gemara Shmami, no, it seems from here, Katan Eichel Nevelis, Be'eznim Mitzuvin Olav Lafrishay. Now we know there's a machlekes, a general machlekes, elsewhere in Shas, whether Bezdin, as mitzvah, is obligated to prevent a katan from eating an avela, from eating a davar iser. This brisa would seem to indicate very clearly, according to your interpretation of the brisa, that there is an iser to allow a katan to eat a davar iser. So how does that reconcile with the general machlekes in this regard? The brisa seems to hold like this shita, and the machlekes of bezdin mitzuvin or not is a machlekes amarayim. So it can't be that the brisa is going one way or the other. We're speaking about we're not speaking about his iser. The brisa is not focusing on the katan. We're speaking about a hegdish that a katan had created. However, the brisa is referring to others, gedolim, other people that want to go ahead and eat his hegdish. And the brisa is telling us, since the katan has the power to be magdish, therefore another person cannot eat his hegdish. And this will be an Issa D'Oraisa, since his hegdish is valid. But nevertheless, there's no indication whatsoever regarding the halacha if the katan himself will go eat his hegdish. And therefore it's not a raya, it's not any support to Rav Huna's chiddush that a katan who's magdish is like it. So this will be good according to the shita that holds that higdish hu v'achal acherim leikin, that if a katan is magdish and others will eat it, they get malchus. According to the shita, which we'll mention later on in the Gemara, ein loikin, there's no such a thing. How will this shita explain the pasuk? Meaning, the brisa had quoted a pasuk which seemed to indicate that even a katan who makes a hegdish, there is an issa of bayachal, and others at least, that's the way we interpreted the brisa, that others will go ahead and eat it, will be like it. So how does this fit with the shita that holds that it's not so? That if a katan makes hegdish and another one eats it, another person, even a gadol, will go ahead and eat it, he is not like it. The itma we've learned, higdish hu v'achla acherim, if a katan was magdish and others went ahead and ate it, Rav Kahana Omar ein loikin, there is no malchus. Rabbi Yechon or Shlakish Amar Tavai loikin. According to Rabbi Yechon or Shlakish, it's good because others who eat his hegdish are like us. So that is in accordance with the brisa. However, according to the first sheet of Rav Kahana, that even others who eat his hegdish are not like her, so that won't fit with the brisa. The fact that the brisa is quoting a pasuk, in essence, really, it's only a din d'Rabbanan. Okra asmachta ba'alma. The brisa is quoting a pasuk as a support, a sort of a raya, a support to the halacha of the Rabbanan, who asered, prohibited another person, an adult, from eating the hegdish of a child. But in reality, midaraisa, there's no such isser. So let's again summarize the Gemara. Rav Huna was mechalish to us that a katan who is magdish and he eats his hegdish, he gets malchus. We attempted to bring a raya from a brisa, which seemed to indicate that a hegdish of a katan carries with it all the consequences of an ordinary hegdish, including malchus. The Gemara answered, no, it is merely an issa daraisa. The Gemara shlugged that up, and the Gemara said that perhaps it's only a d'Rabbanan, and others are commanded to prevent him from eating his hegdish. Then the Gemara's final approach was that we're not even speaking about the din achila of the katan himself, but rather whether other people may eat his hegdish, and the Brisa seemed to indicate that there is an Issa Daraisa with Malkus. Then the Gemara brought ahead a Machlekes Amoraim in this regard, whether the hegdish of a katan carries with it a Malkus even for other people who eat it. And the Gemara said that according to the Shita, that there is no Malkus, they must interpret the Brisa that in reality it's only Issa D'Rabbanan, and the Pasuk brought is only a support for the Issa D'Rabbanan. Dr. Gemara Vait. Gufa, we've just learned, Higdish v'achla acherim. If a 12-year-old is Magdish and others eat it, Rav Kahana Amar Ein Loikin. They do not get Malkus. Rav Yechan v'Rav Shlokish Damar Tavayu Loikin. They do get Malkus. But Ma'ika Mifliki. What is this machlekes dependent on? Mar Sava Mufla Samach Leish Deiraisa. Rav Yochanan and Rav Shlokish hold that the halacha that a 12-year-old who is on the verge of being a gadol does have the ability to make a neder, that is a din deiraisa, and therefore when he's magdish and another person goes ahead and eats it, he gets malchus. Umar Savar, but Rav Kahana holds mufla samach leish midrabanan. It is merely a din derabanan, and therefore it doesn't carry with it the consequence of malchus. Frek the Gemara, how could you say that mufla samach leish is only derabanan? Mas very Yirmiyah, it says in the Brisa, Yisoima shenadra. If Yisoima made a neder, Bala meferla. Now we know that if a married woman makes a neder, her husband has the power to make the neder obsolete. That's called hafaras nedarim. Frek the Gemara, if a Yisayim ktana made a neder, and we know that this marriage is merely a drabanadika marriage because she's only a ktana, as we mentioned earlier today. Now, her neder, if she has the power to make a neder midairaisa, so her neder is valid minatayra. So how then can the hafara of a baal, of a husband who's only married midrabanan, his power of hafara is merely a drabanadika power in the context of a nisui ktana? How could that go ahead and oppose a neder that she made, which is chal midaraisa? So it all works out good and well. Mufla samach leish drabanan. If you hold that the din of a mufla samach leish, the power of making a neder of a 12-year-old is only drabanan, also nesuin drabanan, so the koyach, the power, the ability of the husband within the context of a nesuin drabanan can come ahead and u'mavatel niddah drabanan. I can go ahead and be mavatel the neder that she made, which is merely a drabanan dika neder. Eloi amers deraisa. But if you propose that the power of a samach leish to make a neder, the ability of a 12-year-old to be magdish, is midiraisa, also nesuin drabanan u'mavatel niddah deraisa. How could his ability, his koyach of a baal, the baal who was only married in the Rabbanon, how could that go ahead and be mavatel her neder, which was chal midaraisa? So the Gemara, Amar V'Uda Amar Shmuel, Baala Mefer LaMemonavshach. I have a pashta teretz. The baal could be mefer either way. Why? Because the Rabbananu. If you hold that her power of making a neder is only the Rabbanon, so to the Rabbanon opposing a Rabbanon. Deraisa, if her koyach to make a neder is indeed a deraisa dika koyach, and midaraisa his afara is invalid, so what's going to happen? She's going to be eating something which is a devar iser. Katan oichel nevelasu. So she's eating. She's tantamount to a katan who is eating a nevela. Vein bezin mitzuvah no lafrishay. There's no tzivoy. There's no commandment for bezin to prevent a katan from eating a nevela. Meaning, as long as she remains a katan, we have no problem. Let it be Isser, even if his power of Afara doesn't take effect, and the neder is still a neder, and it will be a Dvar Isser. So big deal, she'll go ahead and eat it. It's not our business, we're not mitzvah to prevent that from happening. In fact, the Gemara, but that's only good and well until she becomes a gadol. She made a neder when she was a ktana. So as long as she's still a ktana, you're saying, not a big deal, she'll eat a Dvar Isser. We're not concerned. But then when she turns a gdoila, she'll continue eating it based on the previous Afara. She won't know to make that distinction. When she turns to be a gdoila, achla shall continue eating b'hafara kamaisa based on the first hafara. So your solution that although it's not a true hafara midaraisa, but as long as she's a ktana, we're not concerned. That's only good and well as long as she's a ktana. But what will happen when she turns a gdoila and continues eating it? So that teretz won't work. So the Gemara, another teretz, Amarav bar Livoi, Bala meifel kol shavasha. A simple solution: let the baal be mefer kol shavasha, meaning every day he'll continue to be mefer. Meaning he'll be mefer once when she's a ktana, and as soon as she becomes a G'dayla, he'll be made for again. So now, we're speaking about in the context of an Isui D'Oraisa, because once she becomes a G'dayla, the marriage turns into a D'Oraisa Dika marriage, and his Koyach Hafara is a D'Oraisa Dika Koyach, so therefore, he can be made for properly. V'hu Shabal, obviously we're speaking about that to live together as husband and wife, meaning he was Kainaha, he acquired her now. Once she became a G'dayla, he was Boil, and now she's married to him Mid'Oraisa, and he has the power, the ability to make for Mid'Oraisa. For the Gemara, but that won't work either. We know this halacha, that a husband, can never be made for a neder that was uttered, that was made prior to marriage. So in this case, technically speaking, Mid'Oraisa, there was no marriage until she became a G'dayla. Now once she became a G'dayla, you're telling me he'll be made for, but what is he coming to be made for? A neder that was made prior to marriage. He doesn't have the ability to do that. So it's back shver. So bottom line is, the halacha of the Brisa, that a Baal can be made for a neder of a Ktana, is shver, won't work according to the shita that mufla samach liish deraisa, because if her neder is deraisa and his hafar is only derabanan, it won't cancel out. So the Gemara, one final teretz, Rav Pinchas mishmei Rav. The Brisa will be following the svara of Rav Pinchas in the name of Rava. The Amar of Pinchas mishmei Rava kol hanederes al das bala hinederes. Every isha who makes a neder, in reality her intentions are that the neder should be should be subject to her husband's approval. He feeds her, she's dependent on him, she wants him to be masking to agree to her nedarim. So in our case, even according to the shita, that mufla samach liish d'oraisa, that a ktana does have the ability to make a neder mid'oraisa, but the nesuim nevertheless is only a midrabanan dik nesuim, and how does he have the koyach, the ability to be made for it within the context of an asuri d'Rabbanan? The answer to that is that Lamaisa, bottom line is she has a mind. She has that intention at the time of making a neder that let's wait and see what my husband's going to say about it. So in the case of Hafara, when he goes ahead and he's made for a neder, it's pretty clear indication that he didn't agree. He wasn't happy with this neder, and the neder never took place at all. Amar Abaye, Toshma. So now the Gemara will ask another kasha and prove that mufla samach liish mid'oraisa. Amar Abaye Toshma. Katan shlei v'shtei saris. A cotton who has not grown 2 saris, he doesn't have the ability to make truma, although he can make a neder, he can make the hegdish. But regarding truma, to be mater the tevel, to take a tevel and remove the truma, and by doing so be mater the tevel, he doesn't have so much of a koyach. Rabbi Yossi Omer, actually, I agree with you if he's too young, if he's prior to the age of Nadarim, meaning he has not reached yet 12 years old. However, if he's already 12 years on a day, he's already at the stage of making a neder, truma, he can make truma, he can make a neder, he can make hegdish, and truma as well. So the Bnei Yeshiva thought, Kasava Rabbi Yossi truma b'zman hazeh deraisa, even though it's after the Yidden left Eretz Yisrael, still in all, truma, the chi of truma is mid'oraisa. So now let's analyze. I'amris b'shleima, if you'll say mufla samach liish d'oraisa, if you'll say that the ability of a katan, of a mufla samach liish, is the d'oraisa, the ability, asi gava d'oraisa, u'masakan tivul d'oraisa, it fits very well. That his ability, this man's ability, a d'oraisa, the ability to take off truma, will be masakin, tevel will permit the tevel, which is a tevel mid'oraisa. By taking off truma, he'll be mater the rest of the tvua. Ela yamas rabbanon, but if his koyach, his ability to take off truma, is only d'rabbanon, because mufla samach liish is only a din d'rabbanon, so how could that work? Asi gaver d'rabbanon. Could a man who has only the ability mid'rabbanon make a tikkun b'masakin tivul d'oraisa? How would that work? So we have a raya, we have a proof from here l'chayr to the shita that mufla samach liish d'oraisa, and therefore he has the koyach to do truma. That's more loy. Kasava Rabbi Yossi truma b'zman hazeh d'rabbanon. You have no raya, because you were making an assumption that Rabbi Yossi holds that the obligation to chiv truma b'zman hazeh d'oraisa. So you had a kasha. How could a chiv d'rabbanon? How could a koyach d'rabbanon address a chiv d'oraisa? But the truth is that Rabbi Yossi holds that the chiv, the whole chiv b'zman hazeh, the whole chiv truma b'zman hagolas is only d'rabbanon the chiv. So then it coincides. True, the din of mufla is only d'rabbanan. The ability of a cotton to take off truma is only d'rabbanan the koyach. But nevertheless, the chiv truma is also merely a d'rabbanan. Therefore, he can go ahead and perform and take off the truma. So the Gemara v'Sava Rabbi Yosi truma b'zman hazeh d'Rabbanan. How can you suggest that that is Shittas Rabbi Yosi? Vatani, we've learned to say the Ro'ilam in a Brisa Asher Yorusha v'Secha v'Yirishta, that your Avos were Yerush, Eretz Yisrael, and you yourself were Yerush as well. You inherited. Yerusha Rishayna v'Shniya Yesh Lahem. Meaning, why does the Torah repeat the word Yerusha twice? Is referring to the two times that the Yidden entered Eretz Yisrael and conquered it. One, at the initial time when they came out of Mitzrayim, they need to conquer Eretz Yisrael, and this way, by doing so, they acquired it. And with Meichel, the Kedusha did take effect on Eretz Yisrael regarding all the halachas of Eretz Yisrael, Kedusha Eretz Yisrael, Truma, etc. But at the time of Golus, when there was the Churban Bayis and Yidden left Eretz Yisrael, the Kedushas Eretz sort of expired, and only when they came back, at the time of Ezra, the time of Bayis Sheni, they needed to reconquer, to make another Yerusha in order to apply and to create and to be Meichel the Din Kedusha on Eretz Yisrael once again. But once that happened, there is no need for any further Yerushas, meaning the Kedusha that happened at that time, that lasts forever, even after the Yidden left Eretz Yisrael during Churban Bayis Sheni. Meaning, the Bezman Hazer, the Yerusha, the Kedusha of Yisrael is still intact and requires a person to keep all the halachas of Kedusha of Yisrael, including Truma. So again, Zok the Braisa, Asher Yerusha V'Secha V'Yirishta. Yerushi Rishayna, that means on the time of Knisa L'Aretz, after Yitzias Mitzrayim, Ushniya, and the second Yerusha at the time of Ezra, Yeshlan was required. Shlishis, but a third conquering is not required. Ein Lahen. The Kedusha of Eretz Yisrael is still intact. We see very clearly that the Chi of Truma B'Zman Hazeh, even today, after Golus, during Golus, is still a Chi of Midaraisa. Rabbi Yochanan, Man Tana Seder Olam. Who's the Man Da'amar who learned Seder Olam? Rabbi Yosi. He is the Man Da'amar. He is the halachas. The Brayos of Seder Olam is in accordance with the sheet of Rabbi Yosi. So you see very clearly that Rabbi Yosi holds. He is of the opinion that Truma B'Zman Hazeh is the Raisa. Because how can you suggest Rabbi Yosi is following the sheet of Truma B'Zman Hazeh the Rabbanan? After the Gemara, Rabbi Yosi Tanila, it's true that he learned the Brayso, he taught it, but he himself personally doesn't agree with that. He holds that Truma B'Zman Hazeh is the Rabbanon, and therefore your teretz on the Brayso works well. How could Rabbi Yosi say that a katan can do Truma B'Zman Hazeh, even though a katan, we're following the shita that a katan would be theoretically only a truma midrabanan, because his power to make a nether is only a derabanan. So how could he go ahead and address a din truma midaraisa? The answer is it's not truma midaraisa. We're speaking b'zman hazeh with truma midrabanan, and a chiv derabanan can be addressed via a truma, a maisa, harama, a frashas truma coming from a katan who has the power to do so midarabanan.